Hi, I'm Kevin Lee with the E-Marketing Association. My day job is I run Did It, a digital first marketing agency. I also have a nonprofit called Giving Forward in the cause marketing business. I'm lucky enough to have Jeff Nicholson with me from Tracer. So I'm not that familiar with his company yet, which is great because we'll all learn together. So Jeff, why don't you give me the backstory on Tracer?
Awesome. And first of all, thank you for having me. Appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.
My backstory, pretty simple. I'm an old school ad nerd. I've been in the space for 15 years, was actually a finance guy out of college and hated it and got lucky enough to start running ads at iProspect. At the time was a small startup in Boston, sat down at my desk and was told, learn how to run ads on Google, and honestly changed my life, and opportunistically have gone from place to place. And, 15 plus years later, I'm now running my own technology firm. So I'm very happy about it.
Well, Frederick Marchini was one of my favorite competitors. So,
Oh, he's amazing. I mean, he was the original, kind of SEO PPC guy. I think he wrote the original book as well. I had the honor of spending some time with him very early in my career, and was very, very pumped to spend time at iProspect and learn and grow.
well, he started the business 2 months before Did It was founded, right?
Oh, there
So
we
he and
go.
I had this running joke, like he would always say he was the first search marketing agency. I'm like, yeah, but just by 2 months,
And
we were
then
right behind you.
those 60 days, those 60 days.
Exactly. So no, we were friendly competitors for a long time, and knew a bunch of the crew up there. So it was a great crew at iProspect.
Absolutely.
So was there a particular catalyst that sort of got you into sort of this, you know, the beauty of data, basically? Because it seems like that's sort of really the core of where you guys are going, and that, by commingling different data sources together, you get some really interesting learning.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing was just experience. You sit down, you start learning how to run ads. You understand you have to infer things from the data and the signals that you're receiving from the platforms, no matter what it is, search, programmatic, et cetera. And then the equations get more complex. And as I went through my different career spots, all of a sudden you realize it becomes more and more of a pain point, and you spend more and more time aggregating data, trying to infer insights. And then the data sets became exponentially larger, and there became so many more, right? And, I always joke 20 years ago, a cheeseburger maker had to make really great cheeseburgers and maybe be good at customer service, and they could survive. Now they have to be good at DoorDash, Yelp, Google directory, and a variety of other things. And I think it's a good, kind of example to give on how difficult it becomes to operate any business in today's ecosystem. And I think data is at the forefront of that. I always tell people you want to be driven by data, not drown in data.
Absolutely, and of course, bad data in, bad decisions out, which is
Extremely.
another big problem. In that, some people think, well, if it's in a spreadsheet, it must be true, and so
Yeah, I always
sometimes,
joke I have healthy paranoia. I always try to, double check and make sure we're looking at the right things. Does it make sense? Does it smell, pass the smell test, as I joke? And so I could not agree more. I mean, even if you're going to visualize something, it's what you put into the visualization tool is what's going to infer what you do after. And so I'm a firm believer that you have to have access to your data, you have to organize it correctly, and then you have to have outputs that are going to show you what you want to do, or at least try to test.
yeah, one of the things that I find fascinating to your sort of cheeseburger example earlier is that um, it has become sort of a little bit of this data divide, right? Where the big enterprise marketers who have plenty of data, they may be drowning in it, but at least they have a lot of it. And
Yep.
so as they make changes to marketing plans, either on the paid or even on the earned side, it's much easier to infer the cause and effect, right? But once you start to get down into mid-sized marketers, or even smaller marketers, SMBs, the S side of SMBs, the cause and effect between the things that you're doing and the successes or failures of what you're doing are much more difficult to infer, right? So there's sort of like the big guys have all the data, they can learn really quickly. The medium-sized guys can learn eventually. They'll reach critical mass on, statistically valid data eventually. They just have to
Yep.
wait a week or two. And then there's the small guys who not only have incomplete data, but I don't feel like they have the tools to even know what the questions are to ask. And so
Yeah.
there's this continuum. Are you guys trying to solve this for everybody? Or are you really sort of more at the enterprise level?
Yeah, I mean, I almost hate to say this, but we are. We actually have cherry picked clientele across a wide variety of industries and multiple sizes. So we service, the T-shirt I'm wearing. Good shout out to Good Life, one of my clients. they're a successful t-shirt company, but they're not operating at the same scale and size as, let's say, Sanofi Pharmaceutical, who also is a client. And so I think you have difficulties on both sides. To your point, if you're dealing with a large scale brand like Sanofi or a major kind of corporation, they have a lot of opportunity, but they have a lot more complex data equation. I think on the flip side with Good Life, to your point, I think every dollar is a lot more meaningful. And so you have to really understand what you're going to test, and you probably don't have as much to play on. And so you have to make better educated hypotheses because you're going to have a bigger impact on your business. It could really change how you operate versus, I think, in the larger scale, it's not, you can take a lot more risk in a small bucket and still kind of continue to operate.
Right. They just announced very timely today, I think, that Google's going to give another 1-year respite on the third-party cookie. Many of the marketers obviously relied for the third-party cookie for both targeting and tracking.
Yep.
And so, the can got kicked down the road, but at the same time, anyone who's in the data business or in the analytics business has to sort of look to the future where you may not have that level of accuracy or precision on your data. Are you guys do you have a plan in place that sort of mitigates the loss of some of that precision?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's really nice. I always joke we're the agnostic kind of Switzerland of data pipes. So I don't tell people how to measure or what to do with their data. I'm enabling whatever they'd like. And then I'm also making recommendations on things that might work better or things to think about. So for us, as the industry changes or you get more data sets or, one company says the return on ad spend's X and one also says it's Y, I'm there to just show what's happening and then have good conversations and healthy debate on what you want to maybe, move to as the industry changes and it grows. So I actually, for us, it's almost an advantage because it empowers companies like ourselves to be more on the forefront. If you're, we're a data intelligence platform, we're aggregating everything that you need to operate your business and to make decisions. And so I'm going to take all the signals that are available. I don't dictate which ones are available from a specific platform like Facebook or Google or what Apple or doesn't not, allow. I'm just going to take everything that you have at your disposal and try to help you grow your business.
Right. What you mentioned your data platform, but it seems like you've also acknowledged the fact that if you don't have the skills to identify and analyze the data, that sometimes you're much more consultative than a lot of the other platforms are. A lot of the other platforms are sort of, here it is, congratulations.
Yeah.
And that you're supposed to then figure it out on your own. And I found it interesting that you sort of decided, no, we have to hold people's hands, be strategic, help them actually dig through the morass of data.
Absolutely. I mean, we use the analogy of pilot and a plane. So if your product is the plane, I'm selling you a high-end piece of technology. It's almost not responsible of me to sell you the plane and allow you to crash it into the wall behind me. I should probably give you a pilot up front to show you how to fly the plane and maybe train some pilots inside your organization so that you're going to utilize the maximum, value of the plane I'm selling you. And so we actually sell our technology with free consulting on top. We have a highly technical client success team that is there to hold your hand and make sure you're successful, because I believe it's my responsibility. If you're going to give me your money, I have to deliver back. I always joke with, if you're going to give me $1, I'm going to give you $1.01 back at a minimum, or I don't feel good about the exchange and what we're doing as business partners.
Absolutely. No argument for me here on that one. You can leave them anonymous if you want, but do you have any sort of fun examples of where sort of you got into the data and there was some really cool aha moment where it was very transformative to the client?
Yeah, I mean, we've had, to your point, I'll give you two really fun examples. If you're looking at some of our smaller SMB e-commerce clients, I think it's just exposure to the data. I think really what's fun for me is you sit with the founders who, might be brand marketers or not, spend 15 years in media and tech like myself. And they want to be educated and understand, what can I look at? And so even just giving them access to, let's say, Google, Facebook, and Shopify in a very clean and easy way to understand what are all those companies telling me as signals, what's available. And then let's maybe learn a few things like 80% of your revenue could be coming from 4 SKUs. Well, are you investing in those 4 SKUs and doubling down on retention and customer kind of appreciation and maybe upselling them? And then the flip side, when you deal with large scale businesses, let's say agencies or, Fortune 500s, it's collaboration. I think the funnest thing for me is sitting in a room and getting two departments who never spoke and realizing that you should have some collaboration here internally or across an agency or brand. And you become the uniforming partner around, okay, let's not, to your point, go, oh, is this data right or this? Okay, everyone believes this is true. Let's have a discussion as what's the best interest for, the business going forward. And so it's those types of experiences that really make me very happy about what we do every day.
Cool. Yeah, I think for us, finding those organizations that are ready, or at least ready with a nudge to break down the data silos between the organizations, that can be really empowering. We have a lot of fun with that too, because often not only are they in different cubicles, but they may be in different parts of the building or different floors, and they may not even realize each other exist.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you have to ask the question, like, does anybody have this data? And, you have to really dig and maybe go up a couple of levels to figure out who actually owns that data set if it exists somewhere, and then figure out how to, normalize it and use it. So I agree. That's a rewarding part of the experience.
Yeah. Well, when you think about data and you have, like, we always talk about it in 3 buckets. You have people, process, and product. And those 3 buckets live both internally in your company and then externally with the partners that you choose to work with. And so if those are not aligned for your best interests, and moving your business forward, you're going to have a hard time making educated hypotheses to, test what you think is going to be valid in the market or learn something from your consumer set so you can make better decisions and service them in a greater way. Cool.
Well, obviously, it being digital marketing, there are new announcements coming out almost weekly, other than the cookie can, the third-party cookie can getting kicked down the road, with regards to platforms coming up with new ad formats, new targeting methodologies, et cetera. So is there anything that you're looking at and based on the data that you're seeing, or just intuition about what's next that you're sort of excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I think up front, I'm really excited. My Roku television in the back, full disclosure, I'm on the advisory board. I'm very excited about the transition of linear television to, OTT offerings and kind of the reshuffling of that industry. I think it creates an opportunity to draw more data into the brands and the marketers and then allow them to understand what's really happening. It changes how you're purchasing the inventory as well as what's available from a tracking perspective and even from a performance indication. And so that's one I really, really love, because I think, you're talking massive scale. I mean, Roku's, let's say, I think it's 50 to 60 million devices in the United States already at a large scale. And you can start to have new tests and new dynamics where marketers can maybe have a better control on what they're doing from an OTT perspective. And maybe they didn't get the opportunity to purchase linear television because the entry points were too difficult or they didn't have enough spend. And so those are things I'm very excited about. I also obviously love anything as we're starting to push high tech like AR and VR. I think Snap's doing a very good job in augmented reality and how they integrate with their app. And I think that's going to lead to new insights and signals on how you want to engage with customers and what those experiences mean and how valuable they are for teaching new behaviors. And then the last one I'm obsessed with is voice, and really thinking about the takeover of the home. There's going to be a war for consumers' homes in the future. I have Alexa and Google Home in almost every room in the house. And when you start to think about that integration and teaching new behaviors to humans, there's a whole new opportunity for brands to really engage consumers and try to, take over part of the home or, have them buy new products or whatever it may be. And my example personally is I have 2 baby boys and my youngest is 3. His third word was Alexa. It was mom, dad, and then Alexa, which if you think about just like the notion of that and the impact on him as a person as he grows up, and I tell him that story, he's probably going to like Amazon a lot, so I think that stuff's really fun.
Absolutely. One of the, you mentioned, you started obviously with the OTT and CTV example and that you're active with Roku. For me, one of the more fascinating layers to that is while we're losing some of the PII targeting in certain portions of the digital ecosystem, one of the areas it's being retained is in CTV and OTT because of the licensing agreements that people have or what they agreed to when they installed their Roku and some of the other platforms. And so it'll be fascinating to watch budgets move around as, the level of precision and targeting, it disappears within certain channels and then reappears potentially within CTV. And of course, video is a much more emotive uh, uh, channel of communication, right? You can do both DR and branding with video. So I think that one's going to be fun to watch. One of the reasons we got into direct mail is because that's one of the other channels where PII still works, right? You can still actually
absolutely
personalize down to the snail mail box.
Yeah, snail mail is still very effective for certain channels. I mean, the functional aspect is I got to open the mail if it comes to the house, or at least someone's going to at the house. I won't, but I think that you have to understand that there's places for all of these experiences, and some people are going to want that. I use my mom a lot as an example because watching her go from loving snail mail to engaging on Facebook with me briefly and learning how to use her phone, but still, generationally very different in how she experiences brands and what she would appreciate versus, I want brands to text me. Like I always ask, I teach classes a lot. And my first question to the students is, do you want a text from a brand? And I've seen slowly over time that more and more people are comfortable with that engagement around the sharing of their direct information. I mean, text is probably the most personal thing that you could do. I mean, it's how most people connect with their family and their friends. And, early on people say, no, I don't want that. And then the example I always gave was, well, do you like the fraud alert from American Express? And everyone says yes. And it's like, because why? It's pure value, right? That is direct communication in the format that you love, that you're going to read. And there's no hindrance to you as a consumer. There's no friction other than they're purely adding value of we need to protect you. And so I think that's going to continue to evolve, and people need to slowly adopt those things, but in a respectful way without offending consumers is the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think, for SMS communications, I think some of the brands that got in early didn't realize there needs to be a quid pro quo value exchange. And that, it's
well, they went with the email drop campaign, right? I mean, it was like, oh, let's create a triage of funnel and text. And it's like, well, that's a very different experience. It's not nearly as expensive to send a few emails as it to send 85 texts,
Yeah, exactly. So that they really didn't necessarily adapt the strategy to the level of intimacy that is a text screen. So it'll be interesting to watch that evolve as well. Funnily on the direct mail side, we saw that obviously some marketers took a breather with direct mail during the pandemic, but for those of them that did not, the open rates and response rates of the mail actually went up because people were stuck at home.
More time at home. I mean, it's simple. I always joke that advertising works, right? Like you're trying to get attention, and your attention changes based on how your behaviors are going on through the world. And if you're at home, I mean, just like you and I are talking, I spend a lot more time in this room. I've used my Google Home a lot more, right? And you engage in that dynamic. And just as direct mail, I mean, people are at home, like you have a better chance to, maybe catch 2 seconds of their time, and that's worthwhile.
Absolutely. Cool. It's a pleasure talking about marketing, talking about data, and thinking about what the future is going to look like. One thing's for sure, digital's here to stay. I mean, at this point,
absolutely,
the nuances between digital and non-digital are going away. TV's digital, outdoor is digital. What's not digital? Right? Direct mail's partially digital. You can personalize it. So digital's here to stay, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Jeff.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.